The early church declared the gospel in preaching and displayed the gospel in generosity. We can't just preach. We can't just teach. We can't just talk about the generosity of God. We ourselves must imitate that generosity as we proclaim the gospel. Remember what John said in 1 John 1:18 and that we read earlier. Let us not love in word or speech, but in action and truth. And verse 33 continued and said, and great grace was on all of them. And what we're going to continue to see in these next few verses is that when God's grace is at work, people get generous. And this reality, it has to cause us to wonder about professing Christians that don't give and aren't generous. And I seriously, we got to think about this. Do those that aren't generous truly understand the gospel? Paul said in 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 9, for you know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, though he was rich, for your sake he became poor, so that by his poverty you might become rich. Jesus, the Son of God, was so generous that he came to earth in the form of a man and became poor for our sakes. He was born into a poor family. He lived a poor life. While he was on earth, people scoffed at him and treated him with disdain. While he was here, people called him names. While he was on the earth, he chose to be poor in the use of his power. He had the power to overthrow those that opposed him, but he chose to remain poor. He restricted himself to loss, suffering, and death. He was rich in holiness, but for our sakes, he chose to become poor and to bear our sin. We were not entitled to this. He didn't have to do any of this. But in his generosity, he chose to come and to live the blameless life and to be sacrificed for our behalf so that we can have acceptance with God. We did not deserve this. We do not deserve this grace, but Christ in his generosity came to and chose to do it anyways. Charles Spurgeon once said, by Christ's poverty, we are made rich in our condition. We are the children of God. He was poor as poor can be, and we, if we believe in him, are as rich can be. The life and work of Christ is generosity defined. And when we truly understand the gospel, we won't hold on to earthly things and earthly possessions and our money so tightly. When we truly understand this grace, and when this grace comes on all of us, as we saw the grace of God come on the early church in our passage today, it will move us towards generosity. And my prayer today is that everyone would fully realize the generosity of God, the grace of God, and that we would allow it to move us to irrational generosity.